Okay, ready to rock and roll. Good morning. Welcome to another virtual Board of Supervisors meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance if you can. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to move to staff announcements. Ms. Everett, is there anyone on the line who has a staff announcement?
I'm not sure, Madam Chair, but I do have the report of closed session that I could read at this time.
Oh, it wasn't on my agenda, and I was really good this time. Could you please read out closed session? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So the report of closed sessions held on July 14th, 2020. Item 30, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, Calaveras residents against commercial marijuana v. County of Calaveras, Board of Supervisors of Calaveras County et al., Calaveras County Superior Court Case Number 19CV44446. There was no reportable action taken. Item 31, conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, County Designated Labor Negotiator Judy Hawkins regarding employee organizations, Calaveras County Sheriff's Management Unit, Calaveras County Public Safety Employees Association, and Calaveras County Deputy Sheriff's Association. There was no reportable action taken. Item 32, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one case, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2. There was no reportable action taken. I don't
Okay.
see anyone who is on the line to make, it looks like Dr. Kaleda has a staff announcement.
Thank you. Dr. Kaleda, could you please proceed? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I know you have another agenda item you want to get to. I thought it would be helpful to just provide a quick numbers update on COVID-19 in Calaveras County, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
All right. I'd like to just share the screen, and I promise this will not take long. All right. All right, I'm going to fast forward through some of this and just get to the local statistics of importance. Calaveras County has 94 cases as of last night. You can see that 49 of those cases remain active, 44 have recovered, and there was one fatality that was reported in a resident of District 4 who passed away on Saturday from COVID-19 related complications. We have 2 patients currently hospitalized in Calaveras County. I've broken down some of the statistics here you can see community of the cases that we've had. Suspected, you can see that community transmission represents 39.77. So let's say 40% of our cases are community transmission, which is a significant figure because as we've discussed the concept, community transmission is the most concerning mode of COVID-19 acquisition. And another statistic of interest is that out of county cases of suspected source of where the individual acquired the infection is 34%, whereas 40% of our cases we feel that they acquired the infection from individuals within Calaveras County. We updated today. This now says 87 cases. It'll be updated to the current case count, and hospitalizations and death totals will also be corrected for. This is our curve of disease activity. You can see it remains quite sharp, and that's not a surprise. I won't go through the race, ethnicity, and age distribution or symptom prevalence. I'll leave that for a more time where we can have a more detailed discussion. Supervisor Tofinelli had asked in the last meeting for more information regarding contacts and as part of our case investigation. And this chart describes the numbers of contacts that the Public Health Department epidemiologic team has interfaced with during contact tracing. It discusses where in the community those individuals were interviewed and contact traced, and you can see the breakdown of age categories for contacts as well. So a scan of this chart will show you that there are hundreds of individuals which are being interviewed and as part of our contact tracing activities on the county public health department. And each of those contacts requires an extensive and time-intensive interview process to understand the nature of how they acquired the infection or what types of exposures individuals may have had to others in the community, so that effective and timely contact tracing, isolation and quarantine measures can be put into place and prevent community transmission. Calaveras remains off the state's monitoring list at this time. So you can see that Calaveras County, we have check marks across the board in the metrics that the California Department of Public Health is monitoring counties on. We've improved our testing numbers, and our case rates and hospital utilization and ventilator and ICU capacity remains adequate at this time. This is just a little bit more information. You can see these numbers are increasing. Last time I presented these numbers, Calaveras County was having a case rate per 100,000 population in the 40s, and now we're in the 50s. We need to stay less than 100 in this measure. Our rate of positive cases for testing continues to increase. Last time we were 4%, now we're 4.4%. We need to stay under 8%. Our number of tests per 100,000 has increased. We were just below 150,000 last time, and this was red, meaning more concerning. Now we've moved up above 150 tests per day per 100,000 people, and now we're in a moderately concerning zone. We'd like to get that up above 200 per 100,000 every day, and we're working hard to do that. And so those were the main issues that I wanted to discuss. And I'll stop sharing my screen and be available for any questions, and you can continue your meeting as agendized.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for Dr. Kaleda? Mr. Garamendi.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Doctor, and congratulations on the improvement of our testing capacity. We talked about that last week, and you said it was coming online, and there it is in the numbers. So thank you very much. Doctor, my question is trying to stay off the naughty list or the monitoring list, as it may be. We have to work in a pool for our hospitalization, and I know a lot of people are being moved around in San Joaquin County, and other counties are having patients moved up to their hospital. We have a limited capacity, and of course we want to help people who are sick. But if we begin moving patients up to our hospital, or when we do, as part of being a member of the community, that's going to change our status and reduce our capacity. So is the state taking that into account as they look at putting people on the monitoring or not on the monitoring list?
As we discussed last meeting, Supervisor, typically small rural hospitals, Calaveras County's hospital is called a critical access hospital. Typically, we are in the business of moving patients from our small hospital with more limited capacities to larger hospitals with greater capacity and more staff and more specialty care. So that's typically the way patients flow and are transferred. I wouldn't expect Mark Twain Medical Center to receive COVID-19 patients and transfer for care that's not being able to be met in other institutions. So that direction of patient transfer we've not seen. If it did happen in an individual case, it could affect our statistics because then that person would take some of our ICU capacity and our numbers would go down. Our hospitalization numbers for COVID-19 patients would increase. And so it would adversely affect our data if that were the case, but that's not the typical pattern of patient transfer, and I don't expect that to be an issue.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Mr. Stopper?
Supervisor Mills had his light on.
Oh,
Well, thank you.
thank you, Mr. Mills.
Doctor, I want to thank you for the community breakdown. Could you go back to that slide for just a moment? That's something that I'd been asking for quite some time.
I believe it's,
That's the one right there. It's interesting that the total number of cases are showing as 23, and yet we have more than that as active cases. Is there anything specific that we're missing from those numbers?
this chart represents individuals who have been contacted by public health's epidemiologic team as part of contact tracing. So that's what these numbers do not reflect cases of COVID-19 infection. It's the number of interviews as part of the contact tracing functions of the public health department. And I'm showing you this information because Supervisor Tofinelli had expressed interest in having more detail on our contact tracing activities.
Thank you. I was concerned also about what would be defined as community hotspots, where there's one community or group of communities that are more having a problem than all of the others, that we can, in essence, what is going on, for instance, in, say, Copperopolis, Angels Camp, or Valley Springs, that might be different from what is going on in the rest of the communities.
The way that we've decided to report the number of new cases or fatalities is by supervisorial district, because we feel that that gives a better comparison to different regions of the county, because those are controlled per population.
Okay, thank you for the information this morning.
Mr. Stopper?
Thank you for the information this morning. Condolences to the family. This is all something we've long dreaded happening in Calaveras County. With that said, I would like to mirror Supervisor Garamindi's comment. Thank you for your work in getting the testing counts higher, keeping us in the good list, the nice list, and all your work towards those ends as we move forward, Dr. Kaleda, while still minding the health of the community. Something that was brought up is, the transfer of people in and out, and I want, part of the concern is San Joaquin County borders directly next to us. Watching the news this morning, their ICU capacity, according to the news, I can't confirm or anything this, is that their ICU capacity is at 121% right now in San Joaquin County. Do they have a contract like we do with, let's say, Sacramento at a certain point? Where do they go? Do we lose him?
I think he's still there.
Looks like we lost our Zoom connection.
It does look like we lost our Zoom connection. Hopefully it'll just take a moment.
So we need to talk about our broadband later. Right?
I'm just so tired of the rhetoric and over and over. longer down the aisle in addition to them?
No, for Grandpa Check or Grandpa Wolf.
Huh. It's a good thing we're going to talk about county business. Congratulations.
I'm wondering if we're have a, I mean, that's still on the internet here as far as like, wow. Maybe we should take a break.
It says I have Wi-Fi, but it's turning over on my iPad, trying to see if it's really connected. Are we going to have to do a hard reset?
CC staff has no internet online. Maybe we could take a break.
Yeah, do you want to announce that we're going to?
Yes. We're going to take a break to give us a moment to get our Zoom connection and our Wi-Fi back up and rolling. Maybe 5 minutes. Testing, 1, 2, 3. It's not coming through there, though.
We can hear you,
Yep, now we
Diane.
can. Okay, thank you.
Welcome back. Dr. Kaleda, are you still with us? No. Mrs. Stranger, are you with us, please?
Yes, I'm on, and I believe Dr. Kaleda is joining again, but
Okay, I just want to go back. Mr. Stopper, are you finished with your questions or comments?
Madam
So
Chair,
we
I
have-
pose my question. I mean, it's not critical. I just want to give Dr. Clada an opportunity to respond.
Okay, could you
I don't know
please-
where he lost me in the middle of it.
Could you,
we heard none of your question.
could you please repeat it? Thank you.
Verbatim, thank you, sir. It goes back to the question of bringing people this way or that between counties when they have COVID. My understanding, and I don't know if these are facts, but what was portrayed by the news this morning is that the ICU capacity in San Joaquin County is at 121%. With that said, do they contract with other places as we do, like with Sacramento at, the Sleep Train Arena, I believe, or is it the Arco Arena? Arco. Do they have other contracts with other places, and, how does that affect us?
So I can answer that. This is Kristen Stranger. The counties throughout the entire state do have the ability to, if they have a need, access the alternate care sites. There's a few locations throughout the state. So that access is available to Calaveras County. It's available to San Joaquin County in the event, or any other county in the event there is a need.
Thank you. And so you're saying that those places are not in Calaveras County, so we don't necessarily get the influx that other areas may get?
So the alternate care sites that you're speaking about, like the one at the Sleep Train, is a larger site and would have the ability to receive community members from other parts of the state as well. It's a centralized site meant to be an alternate care site for counties that have that need. And I know Dr. Kaleda is back on now because he just sent me a message. Oh, I don't see him. Are you there? Oh, I think he's on the other one, but that is the answer.
Okay, and I just want to reiterate, thank you and Dr. Kaleda for doing the work that you have for keeping us on the so-called nice list as we move forward. Thank you.
Madam Chair, before we proceed any further, I'm just waiting for confirmation from the host to make sure that we are YouTube streaming. Thank you.
Got it. All right. I have two questions. One, the chart that Dr. Kaleda first showed, will that be available on the COVID-19 website for the county, along with the other information we put out on Tuesdays and Fridays?
So Dr. Kaleda said that he could answer the question if somebody could invite him to be a panelist again.
Oh, Dr. K.
Yeah, he just sent an email on the bottom and said, I'm not a panelist anymore. And I had a question about his chart.
Ms. Stranger, you could answer the question on whether the chart will be available on the county website for COVID-19?
I don't, gathering that information did take some staff time, so I'd have to consult with the team if they have the ability to make it available. I do know that we do have the intention to provide that information at each one of the board briefings, which are weekly. But Dr. Kaleda can speak to that a little bit more. He is on. Dr. Kaleda, did you hear the question from Supervisor Callaway?
Yes.
I think it was about whether or not the information that I presented will be made public.
Yes.
Yes, we have the capacity to do that. We have venues to release that information to the public, yes.
Okay, thank
So
you.
her specific question was if it would be available on the website, the chart specifically on the EPI data, and my response was I was going to consult with you and the team, and that at a minimum it would be provided at each one of the board briefings going forward.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll work through the logistics of how to make this information public. It's on a PowerPoint type presentation, and we'll have to work through, the technology that's involved in doing that. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but our goal is, yes, to make all the information that we're generating as a public health department available to the community and to elected representatives to inform your decision making.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question. I thought I heard you at our last meeting, at the last update, that you were working with Mark Twain Hospital to establish a lab at Mark Twain, which would help reduce the turnaround time for the test. Am I missing something on that?
Yes, the goal and plan for increasing our testing capability is to work through the San Joaquin County Public Health Laboratory to establish a rapid testing capability for Mark Twain Medical Center. They have some funding through the Federal CARES Act to help increase capacities in local jurisdictions without the ability to do rapid testing. And that's what we're going to be working with Mark Twain to establish through those channels.
But that would only be for testing done through Mark Twain, not done at Bear Valley or Frogtown. Is that correct?
It would only be for specific instances where that information needs to be made available, such as care for more critically ill hospital patients, exposed healthcare workers. It would be for a limited group of people to have access to the rapid testing. Yes, that's true. But if those rapid tests can still be being used locally, it would take some of the stress off of the OptumServe site for others, and we hope it would increase the turnaround time for testing through the traditional ways that we're doing it as well.
So how would it be determined if you go to the OptumServe site that you would be a rapid test or you'd be the 5 to 7?
Rapid testing won't be available at the OptumServe site. The rapid testing will be located at Mark Twain Medical Center and will be for hospital patients, emergency room patients, and healthcare workers primarily. It would comprise a smaller piece of the pie for the testing that's being currently done.
Okay, so there's, excuse me, so those who are going to OptumServe are still having to have the longer wait because of the volume of people being tested?
Yes, the
At this point.
OptumServe site, a person gets the test and it gets sent out to a private laboratory, Quest Diagnostics, and their turnaround time is still prolonged due to the increased volumes, not only with our OptumServe site, but with all of the other entities that they service as well. But then again, the goal of the rapid testing capability would be to serve those higher risk individuals in the healthcare setting and to take some of the stress off the OptumServe site and help increase indirectly the turnaround times in that way as well.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Toffanelli?
Yes, Dr. Clayton, and thank you so much for providing the information that I'd asked for. And I don't know if you still have the ability right now to put that chart back up. I have some questions about it. And if
Yes.
we do plan to post that on the website,
Yes, I've tried to share that screen, Supervisor Tofinelli, but it's been disabled. The host has disabled the attendee from sharing the screen.
okay,
But yes, as I said, our goal is to make the data and information that we generate as a public health department available to the community to help clarify and drive home the statistics and the data, which is fueling our decision making. So yes, our goal is to make this information as public as possible.
and you may be able to see the chart yourself. I do not dispute the numbers that are there. However, if you look at your chart, it says Rancho Calaveras, 0, and it says Valley Springs way up 94 and I think 18 in the blue or whatever it is. And I question the accuracy of those numbers, not the total overall number of numbers representing how many people were contacted, just the areas that are shown on that chart of where they have been located at when they were questioned. And again, you'll see Rancho Calaveras is listed instead of just the greater, I'm taking that's the greater Valley Springs area, but yet Rancho is listed on there and it has 0. So maybe we can make the correction before we post that, if it needs to be corrected, so it's more accurate that we're putting out there.
Yes, the information that is used to compile this figure is through the information that we get reported to us as a local health department. We want as much information reported to us as possible, so the laboratories, the entities that report to us sometimes are lacking a little bit of completeness in detail. This particular data is compiled through our public health contact and tracing staff interviewing individuals. So that information we do have the capability of making accurate and clarifying. So we'll take a second look at this, Supervisor, and make sure that it's accurate before posting it to the
Thank you
public.
very much. Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Mills?
I just threw up another question. Is this being recorded then, doctor, by zip code rather than area?
That I'm not sure, Supervisor Mills. I'm not sure that level of detail of how it's being coded, actually. But again, I can make sure that that information gathering is as precise as possible so that we get the most accurate information for our community and our constituents.
Yeah, I would only be guessing that looking at the way the chart was put together, it's by zip code, and that might be the one thing that's... Yeah, how does that skew the number? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Ms. Stranger, did you have anything you would like to add?
No, I do not.
Okay, are there any public comments on the comments from Mrs. Stranger or Dr. Kaleda?
Madam Chair, staff announcements isn't normally
I know.
something, so I'm not sure that people are aware that.
Well, I just told them if they'd like to
Okay,
call in, considering the sensitivity of it these days,
Okay.
that's all.
I'm working on it. Madam Chair, I'm not able to access the slide for the public comment, so I'm just going to read the phone numbers into
Okay,
the...
thank you.
So if you'd like to make a public comment, please call area code 669-900-9128 or 253-215-8782. The meeting ID number is 833-473-01737, and the password is 911580. There we go. The numbers are up on the screen now. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other staff comments? Sheriff?
Good morning, Chair
Good morning.
Callaway. Supervisors, how are we doing today? We are in some unprecedented times, not unlike our marijuana program, where everybody is divided among us. And it's an unfortunate issue that we have to deal with. And as your sheriff and a constitutional officer, I don't say I ride the fence, but I have to be on top of the fence and work both sides of the fence, because I have to be there for everybody. That's my job, as it was in the marijuana issue. I need to support the doctor and Ms. Stranger in what she's trying to do and what they're trying to do for the county. I need to support you with what you're trying to do for the county. But I also need to recognize our constitutional rights and the rights that people have to do what it is that they want. I'd like to read a couple of things that I've prepared. I know you're hearing a lot of people talking about the First Amendment and how the government is violating our First Amendment for the freedom of speech and freedom of the press and the freedom to demonstrate. There's a lot of controversy that goes around all of this, but I'd like to bring to your attention the 14th Amendment. And what it says is that the 14th Amendment prohibits the government from depriving its citizens of property, life, and liberty. Let me let you know that liberty is the ability to do as one pleases. It is a synonym for the word freedom. In modern policies or politics, liberty is a state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, and political views. Webster's definition of liberty is the quality or state of being free, the power to do as one pleases, freedom from physical restraint, freedom from arbitrary or despotic control, the positive enjoyment of various social, political, or economic rights and privileges, and most importantly, the power of choice. So, when we see people out in the public that choose not to wear a face mask, and there are people with face masks, and you see and hear the arguments that, well, you're not being respectful of me because you're not wearing a mask. But the flip side of that is that you're not being respectful of my liberties if I don't want to wear a mask. Now, I'm not a doctor. I am far from a doctor. I cut my finger and I put a piece of duct tape on it. That's how much of a doctor I am. But when you have the confliction that we're seeing because of this virus, you hear people say that this mask is going to stop this virus. And we all know doctors, we all know nurses, and everybody has their own opinion. And again, I'm not a doctor. I was in the hazardous waste field for a long time, and I know what these masks will and won't stop. I don't know what this virus will do. I don't, as far as getting through a mask or not. But if people are so certain that this mask will stop the virus, and this is what I'm hearing, I'm not saying this is what people are telling me, is that if this mask will stop the virus, then if you're wearing a mask, why do I need to? You're protected if you're that certain that it does. Now, I've talked to Ms. Stranger and Dr. Kaleda, and I believe the masks are going to help. Are they going to stop it? Probably not. I think this is something that we're going to have to deal with for quite a while. It does help. But I want people to understand that the biggest issue that we have going on right now is the lack of respect. If people want to wear a mask, let them wear a mask. If people are out in the public and they're within or outside of that social distance, they don't need to wear a mask. The governor has said that. If you're outside that 6 foot, then don't wear a mask. You don't have to. People are pushing this to the limits to where Jack and I are probably 8 feet apart from each other right now, 7 feet. Okay? So realistically, according to the CDC, and Ms. Stranger can correct me if I'm wrong, a mask is not needed to be worn if we're more than 6 feet apart. So people still have constitutional rights. And I have not seen anything anywhere that says a pandemic changes the authority of the governor or anybody to take away our constitutional rights. So, that being said, I want to read something to you that I've prepared. I can do this without my glasses on, we'll see. No, I've got them right here, but I think I can read it. Not long ago, Governor Newsom issued an order requiring everyone to wear a mask while in public with certain exceptions. As I've stated before, the Calaveras County Sheriff's Office will not actively pursue those without a mask. And let me reiterate that, because our governor has made me release prisoners that did not have COVID, and he put them out into the world where there is COVID. He is getting ready to release 8,000 prisoners in the state of California. And some of these folks do have COVID. So the prison system has the ability to segregate, whether it's for race, for religion, for whatever. They're able to segregate. So in my humble opinion, for him to release people that have COVID back into our community is wrong. It really is. They have a way to segregate them and treat them within the facility. But they're going to allow them to come out. Now, these people that are criminals are going to be coming into our community with COVID. Do you think they're going to wear a mask? I guarantee you they won't, because they didn't go by the rules before. So what makes them think that we're going to go by the rules again? So, again, I will not be enforcing. I will not make criminals out of people that are refusing to wear a mask. However, it is encouraged for all to wear masks while out in public and not able to social distance. I am encouraging people to wear masks. I came in here with Jack wearing my mask. When I went to O'Reilly's yesterday in Valley Springs, I wore my mask. I am being respectful, and that is what I am asking our public to do. Be respectful. If you go into a business that is asking you to wear a mask, wear a mask. We all remember the old signs we used to see in the restaurants say, we reserve the right to refuse service to anyone. No shirt, no shoes, no service. Now they've changed. It says no shirt, no shoes, no mask. They have a right to do that. So, I'll get to that in a minute here. The sheriff's office personnel have been directed by me to start wearing their masks when they come into a public building, if they go into a business, or if they have to talk to someone and they cannot maintain a social distance. So the sheriff's office, contrary to what everybody thinks, is going to comply. We are trying to work. We want this to be done and over with. Sheriff's office personnel, again, will be wearing masks when there's time to apply the mask, when contacting someone in public, entering a residence when on a call for service, if time permits, and entering any business while in uniform, or effecting an arrest when it's tactically practical. I don't want my deputies sick. Our deputies, they work for all of us. I don't want them sick, and I'm sure they don't want to be sick, and they don't want to take it home to their families. So they're going to do what they can to protect themselves and their families. The public does need to understand that in our profession, things go downhill at a moment's notice, and deputies may not have the ability to put on a mask depending on the situation. Things change. I had someone say that they didn't want to go to court because my deputies weren't wearing a mask. My deputies in the courthouse are maintaining their distance. Our bailiffs sit off to the side. Our screener sits behind a unit, and he's probably 7 feet away. And I have given direction that if somebody is coming into the courthouse, if they have to be wanded, that deputy will wear a mask, not only to protect the citizen, but to protect themselves. So we are working to make things better. Businesses, again, have the right to require and make rules for their places of business. The sheriff's office will respond to businesses who request our assistance in removing any person who does not follow their rules and refuses to leave. That person can and will be subject to criminal trespassing. Criminal trespassing is a separate violation under the law. Also, please keep in mind that restaurants and other businesses can be shut down for not following the rules of wearing a mask. That's a violation of California Health Department. So again, I'm encouraging people, if you're going to go to a business, if they're requiring you to wear a mask, wear a mask. Be respectful of that business. Because if they get shut down because you're not wearing a mask, you've done that business no good at all. The sheriff's office realizes that there are many strong opinions when it comes to wearing the mask. We would like to encourage all to be respectful of others and remember that those working in your local businesses are merely doing what is asked of them by their employers and the county and the health department. Please do not give them a hard time as they are working to provide for their families, and let's treat others with respect as everyone is navigating through this difficult time. I needed to make this public because I've been receiving so much feedback for what I am doing and what I'm not doing. There's been a lot of controversy that I'm hearing about, well, I'm only picking and choosing which laws I want to agree with or that I want to enforce. Well, there's the spirit of the law, which is not stopping you and giving you a ticket because you rolled through a stop sign. And then there's the letter of the law that says, I'm supposed to stop and give you a ticket. If I did everything and every officer in this state or country did everything by the letter of the law, it would be miserable. It's ridiculous. It's better to warn somebody and educate them than to cite them. It works a whole lot better. If you get stopped for a speeding ticket and the cop says, hey, you really need to slow down, do you take that better as to press hard 4 copies? Okay, that's reality. And I have a difficult time understanding why people want to put me on this pedestal and say, I'm the sheriff, I have to do exactly what the law says, but it's okay for them to roll the stop sign, it's okay for them to not use their turn signal, it's okay for them to speed. Everybody, every day, when they're driving, probably breaks a rule or a law out there. We're humans. We don't all come to a complete stop. It's a violation of the law. Should I write you a ticket for that? No. So, to the mask issue, and I understand the mask issue is different, and it's unfortunate that we've lost someone in this county, and I feel bad for the family. It's terrible. But we need to work together. We really do. And again, the sheriff's office is going to do its part. by wearing our masks and encouraging people to wear masks. But I want to be clear. I will say it again. I will not cite or arrest anybody for not wearing a mask. People need to be responsible for themselves and look out for each other and take care of themselves. And if it takes wearing a mask to protect yourself and your families, then you need to wear the mask. Again, I wear mine when I go out, and I'm going to be somewhere where I can't social distance. Thank you for your time. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Are there any questions or comments? Mr. Stopper?
Thank you, Sheriff De Basilio. I just want to say one thing, a comment, couldn't have put it out there better myself. It's a very heavy subject. There's points of view from every direction, and I think, the spirit of the law and the letter of the law is something that's very subjective, and I think you demonstrated your position very well, and thank you.
Mr. Mills?
You might want to add, Sheriff, and I appreciate what you said there, that the people empower the government doesn't empower the people. We give the government certain rights and privileges, but in exchange for that, we maintain certain rights and privileges as well. So that goes back to the very foundation of the Constitution.
Absolutely.
Secondly, we have a lot of visitors that are coming into our county as a result of them escaping from the Valley and the Bay Area, and by no means are they wanting to follow all the rules. This is their opportunity to live free or die kind of thing, do their own thing. And that creates another challenge all unto itself, especially in the recreational areas that we have in our communities. You're probably seeing that around Hogan. You're seeing it in Natural Bridges, Candy Rock, and all of the other areas where these outside people just choose not to follow rules simply because they're not in their home state, their home county. So that becomes a challenge all unto itself. And I understand that. I mean, we can only control so much. We can't control everything and everybody. And if we get down to that point, it's going to be a very difficult situation for everybody.
The Sheriff's Office we are making some adjustments, like Natural Bridges and some of these other sites, to put some extra patrols, to at least have the police presence, so that if we see somebody or a group of people, we can mention that to them, to try and curtail some of that. The problem is there are so many areas that we don't have the personnel to do that. And you take a county, we have about 45,000 people in it, and our sheriff's office is geared to work with 45,000 people, and I'll put a plug in that we're still short deputies. That's my whining for you, Ms. Callaway.
I got that.
But the fact is that our community swells every weekend by probably, I would think, 10 to 15,000 people, at a minimum, I would imagine. I would be curious to see what those stats were. I don't know how we could ever get those, but it taxes us immensely. It taxes our everything, not only the police, the fire, the economy as a whole, and the COVID. It's unfortunate, but we are in a recreational area, and this is something we're going to have to deal with. And the Sheriff's Office will do their part to do what we can.
Are there any other questions or comments? I have some. Mr. Garamendi, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Sheriff. I agree. We don't want to make criminals out of our citizens. As you pointed out before, we are given great freedoms in this country, but great freedoms also come with great responsibilities.
Yes.
And we have to work together as a common good to come together. So, I wear my mask because I respect you. You wear your mask because you respect me. And I hope people will take it as that. This is not a political issue, and I'm not saying this is going to solve all the problems. I can say it won't hurt.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
It does not cause more problems, and so it may help. So I would hope that people will be respectful, as you pointed out, and respect me, and respect you, and respect their neighbors by wearing their masks when possible. But I agree. I do not want to make people criminals. I'm seeing more and more people getting on board, whether it's because they care about their neighbor or they're scared of getting the disease. Either way, we're getting greater compliance. And I think that your deputies set an example, and we as community leaders set an example, sends a good message as well. So I appreciate what you're saying today.
Absolutely.
I have a different take, Sheriff. One, I do appreciate the changes that you're making with your officers and in the court. I appreciate all that. I feel strongly that you are the pivotal, you are not on a pedestal, but you are the lion in the county, and people from however they look at you as, is the sheriff arresting or not arresting? I don't think any of the board has a problem with this. Is not a criminal issue, this is a health issue. But the governor has mandated masks, and so what I'm hearing you say is that doesn't apply to me as law enforcement. And I know there are other sheriffs and police chiefs that feel somewhat the same way you do. But Dr. Fauci, I'm not a doctor, as you say, I duct tape my finger. But Dr. Fauci, Dr. Kaleda continually says, wear the masks, wash your hands, use this, keep your social distance. And I think it would help at all if our sheriff said, you shall wear masks. Doesn't mean that you're going to arrest them. We don't want that, or that we're ticketing. But you're saying the same as Dr. Kaleda is saying, and the same as this board should be saying, these are the mantra for the state of California, coming from the governor, from Fauci, from Dr. Kaleda. These are the things that we are going to continue to say. Wear your mask, keep your distance, and sanitize. And I'm not hearing that from you. I'm hearing of the great changes that you're making that I think are important to the community and to our public health office. But I think you need to go a step further, and to say I encourage you, well, I encourage you to do a lot of things. That's not a definitive word for me. And I guess I would like to have seen you go a step further on saying you shall wear masks. I want the community to wear masks. I support wearing masks versus the 14th Amendment, the Second Amendment, the whole Constitution. That's not the issue. This is a health issue. And I want your office and you as the sheriff to be part of the collective team to keep us safe. That's what I would like to have seen from you.
Well, here's what I will do for you. I will say and reiterate what I've already said, that I believe everybody should be wearing masks. I believe that it does help. I don't believe that I have the authority, because of the 14th Amendment and our liberties, to tell people you shall wear a mask. I think that by me telling people that it is highly recommended and I strongly encourage it is about as far as I will go, Ms. Calloway. You see, now you're putting me back in that position of making me choose between what I believe in the Constitution and what you believe we should be doing, or what I should be doing. I believe that people understand that I am encouraging everybody to wear a mask. My deputies and myself are showing the respect by wearing our masks when we need to. Again, I don't agree with what the governor did. I don't believe he has the authority to do that. There's lawsuits going on right now. They can deal with that in the courts. Again, that's irrelevant with what we're talking about right now. Right now, I believe everybody should be wearing a mask. I will not tell people they shall. I believe that's a violation of their constitutional right, and I won't do that. I'm sorry.
What about changing it to must?
I'll compromise. They must wear a mask when they're in public if they're not able to social distance. But I'm not going to
Well, that's
arrest
a
and I'm not
step.
going to cite.
That's one dip, not two, but
I'll work with you. I'm here to work with the county and you, Ms. Calloway, as best I can. because you owe me an ice cream.
One dip though. A must will get you, maybe a must will get you 2 dips.
That being said, I would like to thank you for this
Yes.
plaque for Swanee, for
Thank
the
you.
things that she does for this community.
She does.
And
Please thank her.
She will be very happy to receive this,
Thank you very much.
absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Is there anything else I can do for you today before I ask for more deputies?
Well, yeah, it's okay. I need to do some homework before I send you an email.
Okay.
Are there any other comments from the board?
Rick, I want to say thank you. Thank you for coming in today and clarifying where you are and how you feel. The 14th Amendment, you left a few words out of the sentence that you read where it says due process of law.
Yeah.
So that distinguishes between me being able to do freedom of anything I want to do.
Right.
It's got to be within the realms of the law.
Right.
That I have those freedoms. So the due process of law is actually the caveat to that sentence.
And that's what has not been done by the governor,
Yeah, and
is
that's
the due
right.
process.
So when I do a Hollywood stop, I won't get a ticket because I'm expressing my freedom.
Well, that
That's
goes back to the spirit of the law and the letter of the law, depending on who you roll the stop sign in front of. Will be whether you
Okay.
get the citation or not.
All right. Thank you. Did you have something else you wanted to say, Mr. Mills? Okay, fine. Thank you, Sheriff.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much.
Okay, are there any other staff comments?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Oh,
thank you.
wait, maybe Dr. Kaleda?
Let me just leave you with one thought on masks, okay? Because everyone says, I'm not a doctor, but I am a doctor. And I'd like to just leave you with this thought. Masks are good for 3 reasons, okay? Number 1, a face covering has a large body of scientific data that shows it's effective in reducing COVID-19 viral transmission. Number 2, asymptomatic transmission takes place. That's where a person is not sick or does not feel symptoms, and they can transmit the virus to other people. Wearing a face covering has been shown to prevent asymptomatic transmission in communities. So they're needed. So they work, they're needed, they're mandated by the governor of the state of California, and they're encouraged significantly. A mask by itself won't take the place of physical distancing and hand washing and all of the other things that we recommend that people do. But a mask in conjunction with those things is a highly effective intervention in reducing transmission of this disease in our community during a pandemic the likes of we've not seen in our lifetimes. So masks they work, they're effective, they're encouraged, and I would put it to everybody in this community that wearing a mask does your part in protecting us, letting us open our businesses, letting us open our schools, and letting us do all the things that we all agree that are important and that we want to get back to normalcy on.
Thank you, Dr. Kaleda. Are there any other staff comments or announcements? Thank you, I appreciate that. All right, let's move to public comments. If there's anyone who has anything they'd like to address to the board that is not on the agenda, please call in.
So we have the numbers on the screen for anyone to call in. Oops. Sorry. That's me. There it is. Madam Chair, I don't see any callers. Turn your mic on, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to move to the regular agenda. Madam Clerk, would you like to read the item?
Sure.
We have only one item. Thank you.
Today's item is from the Administrative Office to adopt a resolution temporarily expanding outdoor dining and other outdoor business activities during the state and local COVID-19 emergency.
Okay. CAO Alt.
Madam Chair, thank you. Members of the board and members of the public, thank you for this opportunity to introduce this item. I would like to begin first, on behalf of all of county staff, I would like to extend our sincere condolences to the family of the individual who's lost their life due to the COVID complications. I'd like to next move to express appreciation to the group that worked on this. They got on it very quickly and have developed a good product for us. So Sarah, thank you for leading this effort. Peter Maurer, Julie Moss, Josh Pack, Lisa Medina, Doug Oliver, Kristen Stranger, and Kathy Galino all took part in this effort and have put a lot of effort into putting this resolution forward to us today. It was clear that this group understood the priority of the board, and not only the importance to the board, but how important it is to our small businesses, and particularly our restaurants, that their livelihoods are at stake, and the diligence with which these folks worked on getting this resolution emphasized that priority. So real quickly, the timeline, and it'll become important why I'll review the timeline as we talk a little bit further. On July 13th, our governor announced the immediate shutdown of indoor dining. That was quite a surprise to all of us in this county, because previous to that date, the restriction only applied to counties that were on the monitored list. And as we all know, we had not been on that monitored list. The very next day, on July 14th, the board directed staff to develop options to extend outdoor operations, in this case restaurants and other retail operations. The group, as you recall, on July 14th, I mentioned in the board meeting that we had a meeting set for the very next day on July 15th. By the 16th, we had a draft circulated amongst the group and we're working over comments. And by the morning of the 17th, the agenda was released with the resolution. Why that's important is because the staff were very, very diligent about putting this together, but anytime we have such a short runway with something that's so critical, we get 80 and 90% of our thought into it, but not always will it be a perfect solution when they're crafted that quickly. So we'll talk about some of the challenges we've seen in this process. It's important to note that we did look at other examples from cities and counties, particularly counties that have been on the monitored list and have been navigating this more recently. So our effort in developing this was really around what we believe the intent of the board and the discussions that we had, which were relatively minimal on the 14th. We didn't really get down to discussion with the board of what the board's collective intent was. So our effort was to turn the resolution around quickly and develop a no-cost permit that would allow our businesses to expand outdoor operations. Really as a side note, most of our county operations that were involved in this review are supported by permit fees, and in this case, a no-fee permit will have some impact to the county, and I will suggest anecdotally and next week in our meeting that we utilize CARES Act funding to support this effort, so we can ensure that it's free for our business owners that want to utilize the permit, but we also support the county finances. This is important for me to give this backdrop about the way the process was designed, because there are some concerns that our group highlighted as we were moving forward through this. And I'll start with the first concern is that prior to the resolution even being vetted or actually daylighted to the public on the agenda, we'd already heard and seen many examples where there are already outdoor operations in existence that may or may not comply with the resolution. They certainly can't comply with the resolution if it hasn't been adopted. But even after adoption, if that happens today, there's some potential that some of those operations may not comply with what we've put forward in the resolution. So we'll have to navigate that piece. The resolution does allow for the permit process to expand operations, but it's important to note that our intention was to develop the permit process to be temporary and on a very limited basis. We think it important in the permit process that as operations extend out onto county properties, that the county is not only indemnified but named as an insured when there are operations on the county right-of-way. And we developed the process with that intentionality, and that's certainly subject to board discussion, but that's the way we've designed it. We also designed the process in such a way that we didn't have intention that county staff, whether it's public works or any other departments, are specifically tasked with going out to businesses and helping set up outdoor operations or modifying ingress and egress or setting up temporary or permanent infrastructure to support this. Nor did we design it with the intention of closing down roadways and modifying patterns of traffic. Again, that's something that is subject to discussion, but we didn't develop the process with that intention. It was really intended to be quick and easy, with the way I would oversimplify it to umbrellas and tables, outside of the business. And while the last piece I want to touch on is, while we developed this permit process as a direct response to COVID, there's many enforcement issues that have been notified and noticed in the staff report, whether it's ADA compliance or fire code compliance or any number of regulations that we're obligated to comply with. We developed this permit process to give latitude to the businesses under the requirements that COVID has pushed on us, but we didn't develop the process such that businesses can forego ADA and fire code and myriad of other code compliance. So our intention has been, through development of this process, to use our standard processes within the county with all other permits to enforce our concerns where public safety is at risk. And so with that, obviously you have the resolution before you and the staff report. All of the staff that participated in the development are here and prepared to speak to it, and I'll turn it over to the board for discussion and questions now.
I think I can say on behalf of the board, we're amazed that government works so fast, and whether we have comments and all about the resolution, we really appreciate the work that was done to bring this back as quickly as you did. So to you and staff, thank you very much. Do any members of the board have questions or comments on any aspects of the resolution? Mr. Garamendi.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And Al and all the people who participate in this, thank you very much. I mean, you guys really busted it out and got something done quickly, which I appreciate. And I think you've noted this, but I just want to emphasize that, when I read through this, this is taking on the issues that we have control over. We can't change the state laws. We have to conform with those, and as you pointed out, ADA is just one of them. And so I think what you've done is you've taken on the issues that we have some control over, and that's pretty much exactly what I was looking for. And so I appreciate that, and I look forward to this conversation about the rest of the document. Thank you.
Mr. Stopper.
I also am more than impressed. Everyone came together, got in line, and came to a conclusion or came to the point where they're able to bring this before us 7 days later. Very impressive. I appreciate the flexibility that you've been able to insert in this. When the discussion came forward, the board was mostly talking about restaurants, although we did voice some other things about other businesses, but the flexibility that's been put into here, because I think the staff understood the intent of the board moving forward, so that other businesses may be able to facilitate this use if something moves in one direction or the other in the near future for the rest of these businesses. So I just, I look forward to the rest of the conversation, as Mr. Garamendi said. Thank you.
Mr. Garamendi, do you have something else you want to?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Mills, did you have any questions or comments on any aspects of this resolution?
Yes, first of all, thank you, staff, for your work. I want to go back to several sections within what has been written here, but I don't know if we want to do that individually or how we want
No, you just go right ahead.
to peruse it.
'Cause
The best way to say
I
is
want
peruse.
this approved today.
Well, I'm thinking of a lot of businesses where they already been put into a financial corner because of the additional cost of COVID-related safety gear, cleanup material, et cetera, which, as I said before, is not within the scope of their cost structure. They're already paying for square footage every month to be where they are, and for us to, for them to go out and in essence, take on the burden of tents or tables or shade devices or misters or any of the other things is just an additional expense that they just, I'm certain, cannot absorb into the cost structure that they have with, for instance, in a restaurant within their food costs, labor costs, et cetera, for their business operation. So they're needing to apply for any type of permit. I would prefer that it simply say that they're free to use any of the areas that they have available to them as long as they're complying. And when we find them not in complying, now we have a different issue. Give them the freedom to work with neighbors. If we're talking about them getting into public spaces or areas where there's easements, et cetera, for the county, that's a little different issue as far as indemnity. But for them to be able to have to go get a permit, some of these people don't have online capability. So now you're pushing them down to Government Center here to go through a process of filling out a bunch of paperwork for something which they should be spending their time trying to make it work right there at their home front rather than going out and running around. That's one issue. Secondly, when we talk about complying with, for instance, ADA or any other things, I'm concerned about fire codes. That's something I think more involved with the fire districts as to where things may be placed, and the fire district should be able to weigh in on that. But some of these locations may not be ADA compliant, simply because of the way the parking lot's structured, the hard surface is structured. There could be all kinds of steps or rails or other things that may be necessary that they just don't have the financial capability of doing it on a short-term basis. And so now we've got them in a corner again. I would just assume they find a way to get their business out. And it's not just restaurants. I could even say this would apply to wineries. And what if that winery wants to, for instance, provide live music where all of the band members stay 6 feet apart during the time that they're open and available, whether it's a restaurant or winery or whatever. How restrictive do we want to take this in what we're doing here? And in essence, who's going to pay for it? Maybe we need to, some of this, take it out of the CARES Act money. Give them the ability to apply for grants or short-term loans or something to offset these additional costs, of which some of these people, literally, even though they own a restaurant or they own a business, they are literally paycheck to paycheck. They are struggling with the idea that I have kids who may not go to school this year. How do I get them into some type of a daycare facility? I still have to go out and earn a living at a job in a restaurant or whatever. And if I don't go to work, I don't get paid. So now we're putting them in another corner because they're being forced and they don't have the financial capacity. So those are some of the areas that I have a great concern. Our farmers market right now at Angels Camp is shut down. How do we get that reopened and stay within the guidelines to be able to do what they do? And there's other places that could also, farm to fork, be included in this discussion so that they can open up and be somewhat successful in the short term. So I'm concerned that there's no business plan here. I'd like to know whether or not we're going to set up a budget unit, an account number. Is Kathy Gomes going to work that out? But to me, the greatest concern is, do we regulate or do we find a way for them to take care of the costs to comply? What are going to be the costs, and how do we help them absorb those costs and still survive into next year? So I know I covered a lot of ground, but that's generally the gist, is that businesses who can find ways, we give them the rules, they find the ways to live within the rules. If they can't, then they come to us and they talk about how they're going to work around it, or we can help them to work around it and be available to help them work around it. But for them to be restrictive on a set of rules, I think may lead to more difficulty and more heartache for all of them than it will to solve a problem.
Okay, I want to respond to some of the things Mr. Mills said. I agree with him that I think we should use CARES Act money. I was thinking it in terms of the indemnification that I have to say, since this came out until this morning, I've kind of made I've gone down several different paths, but one, not making it as complicated. I don't see this as complicated as Supervisor Mills does. I think there's a lot more flexibility. I do see some costs. One cost being the certificate of insurance or indemnifying the county. When this came out, I thought, county's going to eat the cost of indemnification. I thought, okay, do we require that when we have street fairs? No, street fairs, the vendors all have insurance. They indemnify whomever's putting on the street fair. So if they can give us an invoice and saying my insurance is going to cost me an extra $50 or $200 to have the county as a named insured, then let's pay for that through the $4.5 million that we've received because we have the money to do that. Whether we want to go to paying for the tents or canopies or umbrellas, I was just willing to put up a tent, put up a canopy, and the fire marshal for the Murphy's Fire District slapped my hand on that one. And so I had to move forward in saying, I was trying to make something, as Mr. Mills was, as easy as possible, but in the process, I was doing things that really were not for the benefit of the community. When we have street fairs, we require the vendors to have, and Mr. Oliver can help me out, some certified canopies. So it's something that we're already doing as a county. So I don't see it as complicated. Talking to staff, the commitment was, this is the highest priority, we're going to get them in. My concern was, it's going to take, another week to get the permits done. The commitment was, it's going to be an in and out process. You get us the permit in the morning and we'll have, or your application, and we'll have it to you by the afternoon. So I'm looking at this as really not as complicated as Mr. Mills does. And if it needs tweaking, then we can tweak it. The fact that we have this from last Tuesday and what we gave direction to getting it out on the 17th so it could be out for public view, to me is amazing. We never work that fast. So, I support this. I do, a concern I had was the fire marshal who slapped my hand, rightfully so, was for a particular area, for the Murphy's Fire District. Well, what about the Ebbets Pass Fire District, or for the other fire districts, for Copperopolis? So they're going to do the same thing, and I'm assuming that they will be. It's part of the code that they already enforce. We have a permit system in place. Let's not make it complicated. I don't think this makes it complicated. And the staff knows how critical this is to us as a board and to our business community. And so I guess I'd like to see us, I'll take the motion, the second, and I'll vote. I think we just need to move. And I understand Mr. Mills's concerns, and if those problems come up, then let's adapt to them as they go. We all have businesses, I understand, that have already gone into the public or private spaces, and this resolution becomes effective as soon as we vote on it. So what is it we can do to make it happen? Mr. Oliver, do you have anything you want to say? Because I see you here.
Thank you.
What? Oh, well, no, he's sitting here for it. I didn't see your red light, Mr. Tuffanelli. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, Doug, part of what I'm going to bring up is going to be some of your, deal with you. I'm a little bit concerned in a couple areas here of this ordinance. You talked about a certificate of indemnity, naming the county. Normally those are something that's done with contracts when you're doing perform work on or for somebody, either a general contractor or on somebody else's property, that you name them additionally insured through an indemnity clause, and normally those don't cost anything. But you do have to provide the contract of scope of work to your insurance company so they know what they're indemnifying, what type of work it is. Here we're just asking for it, and actually the county's not doing any work on these private properties. I would understand maybe if we were going to do something in the county right away, we would ask for this, but it doesn't say that in here. It just says part of the application process that you need to bring additional insured to the county indemnity. I question that and why that's in here specifically for this.
Well, sorry, I'm happy to speak to that, Supervisor Tofanelli, if you'd like. I can hopefully
do we require that for any other business?
So, and I hope I can articulate this well. I wanted to make a distinction between indemnification and actually adding the county as an additional insured. What the resolution says is that we would be asking for indemnification. That is extremely standard, as you mentioned, in contracts, but also any, and I don't want to speak for Doug and Peter and Josh, but I think pretty much any permit, any land use approval that we, the county, affirmatively give someone, there's always an indemnification provision. That's extremely standard. Now, adding the county as an additional insured, getting a certificate of insurance, that's separate. And we would, I think, probably only be requiring that when someone is looking to expand their operations to do this within the county right-of-way or otherwise on county property. That ensures that, if someone were to get hurt or something like that, that the county would be protected. So indemnification and adding the county as additional insured, two different ideas, and one would be across the board, and the other would only be if someone's looking to operate on county property or within the county right-of-way.
And I understand what you're talking about, but if you indemnify somebody in an indemnification agreement, generally you're going to use your insurance to do that. I would not indemnify you, and if an accident occurs, I cover it out of my pocket. You're asking for anybody that sues and wants to sue the county that I protect the county and not involve them in the lawsuit or any cost that the county has to protect themselves in a lawsuit that they're named in, that I would absorb those costs. So it's going to be an insurance indemnity regardless. I don't know anybody that would indemnify you without going through their
right. So as a practical matter, you're right. Obviously, insurance is usually or hopefully going to be involved in those contexts. Indemnification is the legal is a legal duty. The money piece is separate, but you're right, that's usually going to involve insurance. Although that would, be on the business or the individual to decide, whether they wanted to make that investment in those contexts. But again, we do, and Peter or Josh, if I'm misspeaking, please correct me, but I believe that in any land use approval context, we always require indemnification.
Is this actually, well, I guess we've turned it into a land use issue, because you're asking for them to fill out for a permit, or an application for a permit. So you're making it a land use issue. The other question I have is, and I kind of understand why it's in here, but it kind of, in my opinion, is a conflict. Item number 6 says temporary outdoor areas shall be used as is, without being further developed, prepared, or altered, and no vegetation shall be removed. And I understand why that's there, because you don't want them doing whatever they want to do without coming to the building department and getting a permit and having it inspected if it does something. However, you go down to number 8, and it says, all applicable state laws and regulations, including but not limited to American Disabilities Act and the California Disabled Persons Act. Now, if they're going to put something up temporarily outside, they may need to do something temporarily in order to comply with that law. So it's kind of a conflict here of what you're saying, that you can't do anything, but at the same time, you need to comply to this law. I think maybe we can add some verbiage here, or something. Doug, you can help out on something here, because there's going to be some instances where there's curbs or something, and they may have to cut part of a curb away to allow wheelchairs or walkers or whatever to get in there, and then they have to put it back, report after this is all over, and we go back. Something that I think could be part of the application fee. So it says a site map is supposed to be supplied during that application, that we can make sure we can help them in complying with that without going down this number 6 area of not being able to do anything.
So I'm happy, we can absolutely discuss tweaking the language to make it more clear, Supervisor Tofinelli. The intention with 6 was, as you spoke to, both to preclude kind of permanent, large-scale changes for a variety of reasons. One of which, we don't want this to be a project under CEQA. We're looking at some other, this is designed to be temporary in nature, and so that was the intention. But we can discuss language that would make that more clear.
And I'm in agreement with Marita that we need to get this done today and signed off and ready to go. So the other question I had was on number 14. That says no business shall erect a tent or shade structure other than an umbrella table without the prior written approval of the Calaveras County Building Department, which shall be reviewed expeditiously and free of charge. I understand, I get where you're coming from. However, just being a citizen myself, I can go online and buy a tent. I can put that tent up, and I can have an event at my house or a family over and everything else, or anybody that I want to invite over, and have 50 people there or whatever, and use the structure that I bought online and put up, and I don't need a permit to put that tent up. And I would have people there. My insurance would cover it if somebody got hurt. So I'm a little bit questioning, although I kind of understand where you're going with it. You don't want them putting something up that's dangerous. But if it's a tent that you purchased online, even you reviewing it expeditiously, okay, you bought this tent, here it is, and here's the application to how you put it together and what you do with it. Are you saying that you're going to send an inspector out there to inspect how they installed the tent? Because otherwise you're defeating the purpose, other than their site map showing a tent up. I mean, I'm a little bit confused on this part of it, because normally if this was a construction job, it wouldn't be just reviewed expeditiously, say, okay, you'd send an inspector out when they call for inspection once it's up. So that was my question.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Doug Oliver, Chief Building Official. Let me try and address a lot of your concerns because most of them have landed in my airport here.
They have.
And a lot of them aren't as complex or scary as they sound on paper. And it could be that we massage some of the language here so that it functions more as in written form as it is intended in the code. What we're looking at is the difference between building standards and fire code, fire standards. Building inspections only happen after a lot of plan review and a lot of design methodology is vetted and a permit's issued. Fire code, a lot of the fire code requirements that culminate in what are called operational permits, which there's over 50 that are required in the fire code, and they're part of the fire prevention program that you've asked me to develop. One of them is temporary membrane structures and tents. And there's some specific language, and you're right, it absolutely is not the average pop-up or that you set up for your garage sale or your camping event. There are specific requirements when it turns into a tent that is used for the occupancy of the public or for for any event where it's not just your family or it's gotten larger than 5 or 6 people. The specific language in the code, in the fire code, addresses the requirement for a building permit if it is a tent or other canopy that is over 400 square feet. Now, if it's open on all 4 sides, then the exemption extends to 700 feet. Now, that's just talking about if whether a permit's required. The code does indicate that even if a permit is not required, fire code still has to be met, very similar to the building code where there's a lot of exemptions. You can build a 10 by 12 shed, but you still have to meet the code. We don't need a permit. It's said that way so that if someone builds something that is fundamentally dangerous to the public, we have the ability to go out and say, okay, this is how you fix that. And that's really what this is intended to do is,
that's my question.
And just to kind of touch us a little further, that doesn't mean you can put a whole bunch of 10 by 10 pop-ups together and say that's okay. It's not, because they have to be set aside and separate. So a lot of what we're going to see may not culminate in a temporary tent permit. I will say that that has kicked a portion of the fire prevention program I was putting together into high gear, because we're not just looking at the temporary tents, we're looking at special events in some cases where it's not going to be tents, but it's going to be chairs and tables and various other implements. And really what that is in the fire prevention program, just like the code compliance program, there's a great deal of education involved and a great deal of flexibility for special events. So to your point about ADA, yes, we have to follow ADA. Yes, it's a federal guideline. Yes, it's in the building code. If we're out there looking at a temporary program, we're not going to require somebody to get out the spray paint and make a whole bunch of new ADA parking spaces because they blocked one in front of the building. Get a roll of blue tape and white tape and make it work. We're going to be very flexible in the approach, and I guess we kind of have to separate this out because you have the potential for 3 different permits here. You have the planning permit just to get started, which I can advise on the site plan, which isn't really a big deal for our department anyway. We can absorb that workload easily. Then we have the potential fire permit for the tents, which the three of the fire districts have their own inspection staff, and they're on board with this. They want them. They will even be doing the inspections in their district. We're going to be issuing the permits for them to have on site. So we've already coordinated with 3 of those fire districts with the intent of vetting the full program with all 9 districts in the JPA. So we are already in communication with them, and we're working that out. Then we also have Public Works, the potential for a permit for them for, so as we talk about this, primarily I'm focused on this fire permit and what we see when we go out on site.
So just to don't mean to cut you short here, but I do have a question. So in answer to my question about inspection, you will be going out doing inspections before they're actually issued a permit?
For a tent permit, yes.
For a tent permit or any other, who's going to be doing the ADA compliance? Is that code, your department, going to go out and make sure they didn't cover up 14 ADA parking places and they need to, so I'm just trying to get the inspection part of it covered, the amount of time, if they're going to be issued a permit and then come out and be inspected, because I'm going to get flooded with a bunch of questions. And these are already some of the questions that I've been asked. That's why I'm asking them. So
I completely understand it, and I would say that we will need Peter to chime in here in a moment, because I can't speak to their process, but Josh as well. But as it pertains to the entire process, the department heads have roundly concurred that this needs to be as fast as possible. And that means streamlining this way down. I mean, for instance, we're not going to a process where you apply for a permit, wait to get it approved, and we print it for you. A temporary tent permit roundly throughout California is you fill out the form, pay the fee right there. In this case, there won't be a fee. And you bring that form out to your place and wait for the fire inspector to show up, inspect it, and sign it. And as soon as we sign it, you have that on site saying we're compliant. That's the limit of our work. And when it comes to, as it pertains to the tents, you don't even need a site plan for a tent permit unless it exceeds, it has to be a big tent. Let's just put it that way. I think it's 7,500 square feet, something like 50 occupant load. And in this case, with small businesses, we're not going to see that. So our process is simple. Get the application, fill it out, have us create the permit, set up an inspection, we go out, and then we look at the site. Do you have exits blocked or not? Do you have ADA covered up that we need to address? Do you have the fire access lanes blocked? Do you have any obstacles that are going to prevent the first responders from getting in and helping? And, hit all the high points and then start working with them. We don't walk away. It's like, okay, can you shift this tent over a foot? Can you tape out this other area here? Can you put in a small wooden ramp temporarily right here that meets the building code requirements rather than jackhammer a bunch of concrete out? The goal of this entire process as it relates to the permit is get out there and facilitate it, because us spending an extra 15 minutes helping you, it saves everyone time, including us, in trying to mitigate it afterwards. But then I do want to point, this is just talking about item 14. Mm-hmm. Item 17. Did I run out of time?
No.
I heard a ding.
Your 3 minutes are up.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, thank you for your time. Now, item 17 is the other part where it says that, we won't undertake any enforcement action concerning businesses conducted under this. Correct? But it has to be noted that there's going to be people that will violate the fire code and not come in and get the permit, and we've already got some. We've got tents blocking access. We got tents with cyclone fences around them right in front of exits.
Yes.
And we're going to be going out and educating those folks tomorrow with fire prevention. And we're going to start hitting the districts and going through and educating people, handing out FAQ sheets and handing out the permit applications and explaining the process as it is. It's education first. If someone is just non-compliant, it's not in non-compliance with this resolution that we're going to go out. But violations of fire code, especially when it comes to setting up these tent structures and blocking the ability for fire to help people, That is an extreme hazard, and the fire districts that I've talked to are all in favor of going out, educating if they don't listen. It's a code compliance case, but it's not a code compliance case for the resolution. And it's going to be a notice of violation that says you got a couple of days because you're not listening. Please just move that tent over a foot. Please take this barricade down. Simple things, please. I don't expect a lot of these, but there'll be a few. And we're going to have to treat it very seriously because it's not about a virus. It's not about people's opinion. It's about fire life safety items. So know that we're going to be as flexible as possible for everybody. There will be a point where a fire chief or a fire inspector or the public is going to say, those 10 people packed in there are going to get killed. If that's the case, we're going to have to act a little more sternly than with everyone else that's going to want to comply.
I have one last question. If I'm a business owner and I go down this path, and then the time comes up where everything is lifted, but yet I find, hey, this works really well for me. I may still want to keep it and also do indoor too. I want to be very clear and have you say very clear that once this is up, that if they continue the process, that they have to go through the complete app building and planning and application process to make it permanent.
Absolutely. The temporary tent permit alone is a maximum, in normal conditions, is a maximum of 180 days per tent per calendar year. We're modifying that here for this resolution to say as long as this resolution is active, these permits will be active, and then they will sunset when the resolution does.
I just want to make that perfectly clear so people that are going to go down this path completely understand that after we lifted restraining, the order is lifted and the temporary urgency ordinance is gone because everything's been lifted, that they have to reel it back in. They can no longer use it, and if they want to continue to use it because it worked well for them, that they have to go through the complete planning and building permit process in order to get a permit to do it, making it permanent, whether it's a temporary tent or whatever, that it no longer falls under this ordinance.
Without question.
Because I think we're going to run into some of that, but we need to make that perfectly clear. So, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Doug, I'm looking at timelines here. If the board passes something today and you've got restaurants that will want to be fully functional within the guidelines by this weekend, do we have the capacity to get that done?
I can't answer on the planning department side. Peter's going to have to explain what his staff can accomplish. When it comes to the temporary tent stuff, we're prepared to issue permits right now. And like I said, I am going out tomorrow on some of the sites that already have tents up to encourage them to come in and get that resolved.
I know where some of them are. I want to be very clear that the discussion, too, does not include the City of Angels Camp. They're going to have to deal with this separately on their own. They can use ours as a guideline, but they're going to have to decide it themselves. So we're not discussing Angels Camp here.
Correct.
Secondly, I'd like to go to item number 16 about outdoor food preparation areas and serving areas are prohibited. I'd like to add in unless previously used, because we have some areas that are some places where there's been outdoor prep and outdoor stations all along. And I don't want to be able to put in here to where they have to remove those if they've been doing it all along.
Unfortunately, I can't really weigh in on that one. That's an environmental health issue. I can say that open flame and cooking equipment in temporary tents is a fire code item, but outdoor preparation is something that is governed by environmental health.
Well, specifically serving stations be like waitress stations or places where waitresses or waiters launch from. Mm-hmm. And so some of those restaurants have had those outdoor locations for quite some time. I don't want to put them in a position. I think environmental health should not be able to prohibit them from doing something they've been doing right along anyway. And then the result would be is if they comply, then what's going to happen? Somebody weighing in?
Could we, Sarah, add unless otherwise permitted by environmental health?
We could, or I was actually I have it here in Word up on my screen, and I just added, what if we said new or additional outdoor food preparation areas? Because I agree, Supervisor Mills, obviously if it's something that has already been taken place and is permitted, then we're not suggesting that anyone has to cease that. I don't know whether, I know that Ms. Medina, I don't know whether she's here. I know she had a conflict. But the reason for writing that in is because that is something that's governed by state law, and both health and safety code as well as Mr. Oliver said, fire code. But would it solve the problem to say new or additional?
Yes, for clarity, I think that would be very important to have in there so that everybody understands what you've been doing previously. Environmental health's already aware of it. We're not talking about that. We're talking about new.
Expansion of that.
Or expansion, yes.
I think the new and additional addition addresses the issue.
Okay.
And
I just want some language in there for that.
Yeah.
No, I understand. I just made that change. Thank you.
If I may go back to item 14, because as I read it now, it may be better to alleviate the concerns over us requiring written approval for everything, to change the language potentially to say without written approval unless exempted per fire code or something similar to that, so that I don't want to have to write an exemption if it's exempt, and this would indicate that I would have to give everyone a written something.
That was the language that I was going to, because I'm thinking of a 10 by 30 tent would be generally exempted under fire code.
Correct.
So, we don't want to leave this so ambiguous that you're being flooded with questions and calls and permit requests and things like that. If we state very clearly that it's already exempt in our body of our urgency ordinance, we've solved that problem of language.
Yeah, so some language indicating that the flexibility contained in the fire code would apply, and I think we'd be good there.
Okay.
And then I will have a FAQ sheet once this resolution is adopted. We'll be pushing out to the public to hopefully, keep the questions down.
For those people that would temporarily make changes so that they are ADA compliant, they may not be busting out concrete. They may be putting in a ramp, just so they understand whatever they do, they have to put it back when they're done. And I think it says that here. But the FAQ sheet may help to clarify those questions for them.
Thank you.
Mr. Oliver, I'm just trying to write that change in as we go, and I want to make sure I get it correct. So in 14, if it says no business shall erect a tent or shade structure, parentheses, other than an umbrella table, and then if I said, or if otherwise exempt, would it be from state fire code requirement, or what would be the most accurate language?
Yeah.
Well, there's let's say,
Doug, you could start it out with the exemption of state fire code. Unless you are exempt from state fire code, no business shall erect.
well, how about we could also just say that businesses shall comply with the 2019 California Fire Code for the issuance of temporary tent structures. That way, because if we do it that way, there's no discussion of umbrella tables or anything like that.
Good.
We can do that. I just don't know that everyone's going to necessarily know what that says or whether they would be subject to it. But I can.
We can keep them informed through the FAQs and we can push it out. And like I said, we're gonna be campaigning everywhere we get a complaint or a question. We're gonna be handing this stuff out. Our inspectors, our code compliance, anybody in the field is going to be pushing this information out. So hopefully, we won't have too many backups on this.
Thank you.
Is that all, Mr. Stopper?
I think the rest of the board, they brought up some very good points. Very happy that the permit fees are waived But I think we need to acknowledge as a board that we'll be eating part of this through our general fund dollars in a time that we're having some hardships, but that is our right as a board to be able to waive such fees as such. We don't know yet, though. I mean, that's to come, and I'm reading more and more information from other counties on how some of that's being applied, so that's a very gray area right now. But I do appreciate that idea from you, Ms. Callaway, and Supervisor Mills, that, I would think that there's certain areas where we could help them comply with certain of the COVID requirements moving forward also. I want to bring up the fire ingress and egress for occupancy. Thank you for addressing that, Mr. Oliver. It's something that's been a grave concern of me after between Friday and Sunday, between work, purposely traveling places, meetings. I've covered the entire county except for the Mountain Ranch corridor. And there are businesses that are being proactive based on what we talked about Tuesday that are of some concern in quite a few areas. I think you provided a clear path to that, and I think this comes to the conversation we had with the sheriff earlier today as to the spirit of the law as opposed to the letter of the law. And, we do have to remain safe when it comes to fire issues. Chain link fence completely surrounding an entrance to a building addresses some, is a concern when it comes to egress. Other than that, I think we already addressed some of the issues that needed to be addressed, and we're going to continue to. But I just, thank you for being flexible. This is not a reflection on what you've done in the last 7 days. And, you've done a tremendous job. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Tuffanelli had a question first, Mr. Alt.
my apologies.
I still have somewhat of an issue with the language in number 6. We just talked about being able to put in a ramp for ADA compliance, yet it still says without being further developed, prepared, or altered. And if you put in a ramp or something else, you're altering or preparing the site. And I'm not sure it's going to fit if you just take prepared or altered out and just leave further developed and no vegetation shall be removed. Because there has to be some leeway here for them to be able to prepare this site and make it ADA compliant or whatever. Something's going to have to go on some of them. I know of a couple right off the bat that are going to have to do something to be ADA compliant, but yet it states this. And I don't know how to get around it other than you changing the language somewhat in 6.
Can I make a recommendation to the other department heads, since we're all watching it? Perhaps we could add the word permanently prepared or altered.
That would work.
Does everybody out there?
This is Peter Maurer, and I would agree with that. I was going to suggest that similar language might, cover that same issue, but I like the language that Doug has suggested. I think that covers the concern. The issue about the alteration is the CEQA exemption that we're using to get through this requires that no permanent changes to the site be made. So that's why that language is in there. But I think if we add the word permanent alteration or permanent change, then that will satisfy the concern that obviously there need to be some alterations, but they would be temporary in nature.
Perfect. That works for me. That's all I have.
Mr. Garamendi?
Madam Chair, if you want to do public comment, I'm happy to make a motion.
I have a question. I haven't been allowed. Thank you. I have a scenario in Murphy's where it's proposed in working with the Murphy's businesses there, we're going to take out parking on both sides. There'll still be traffic in the middle, but instead of having 20 applications coming in with diagrams, that my recommendation is that Murphy's be allowed to do a blanket layout. I'm meeting with the fire chief and the fire marshal and Public Works, because it's the county road. You're welcome to join us tomorrow at 4 o'clock. And I'd like to do a blanket layout. We're going to show where the hydrants are, the access, so forth, and all the requirements, and blanket for both sides of the street, and that's submitted in terms of the layout. Each business will still have to do an application. I lost that fight. But if it's okay with staff, that's what we do for Murphy's. So the layout will be there. All the hydrants will be marked. The accesses will be marked. I could say like every 200 feet, there'll still be access from the street to the sidewalk, or for Cisco to make a delivery, or UPS and so forth, which is they stop in the middle of the street now anyway. So is there an issue with possibly doing that versus 20 people coming in and we do it piecemeal? The layout is the same. The applications would be by business.
So-
Staff, I'm not.
So from my perspective, Supervisor Callaway, that's perfectly fine if they all have the same site plan or layout submitted. My only thought is whether that would be sufficiently detailed for Mr. Pack's purposes to be able to see what it is. But if it is, then I see no issue.
He's going to be part of the walkthrough. And the only other place I could see it somewhat maybe the model being done would be in McCollum Hill, where they have parking on both sides and they could still go up and down the street. But to try and simplify the layout process so that staff will see the layout for the whole town and not 20 pieces of application. And Mr. Oliver, you have this look on your face that has a yes but look to it.
Not at all, ma'am. We're heading in absolutely the right direction with this. I was in email communication with the fire inspector in Murphy's, and his recommendation was in line with what we're thinking, that we get a blanket site plan. We do what's called, it's essentially a special event permit, which is another one of those fire prevention permits. When you have a program this big, you get one site plan to cover everything, and it's no different than a street fair or a music festival or anything like that. We lay out the whole plan, we agree on that, and then individual vendors come in and get their tent permit in line with that site plan, and then one day we inspect everything and knock it all out with fire prevention. It's common, and it's a working model that I'd love to implement.
Good. Thank you. We're meeting at 4 tomorrow, if you want to join us in front
Very
of
good.
the
I'll be
Native
there.
Sons.
And if I may speak for a second, Supervisor Callaway, especially since roads and lane and road closures fall under the purview of Public Works and the road commissioner, I actually appreciate that approach as opposed to a more quilted approach. We are meeting tomorrow at 4. I think a really good blueprint, no pun intended, is to go through this, talk with the neighbors who are interested, come up with an overall plan for the neighborhood, and then let the individual businesses apply for that under that guise. So for me, not every unincorporated area is different. Oak Hill's different than Copper. That's different than Murphy's. For Murphy's, that may work really well. And I'm looking forward to that discussion. And I think it also might help streamline the process for the other businesses in Murphy's, being able to be involved in that early process, know what the guise and premise of how that's going to work, and then they can apply for those individual permits within the framework of that discussion. So for me, that works well. Again, per what the CAO had said previously, a lot of the framework of actually doing the closure would fall upon the individual businesses. But we're here, and I think I haven't had a chance to say it, but we do have a permit ready to go. We actually have 2 permits based on the direction that you'll give today. One will fall by the wayside, the other one will move forward. We'll be ready to release that to the public almost immediately after this board takes action. So we'll be ready to go, and we do have the resources necessary to quickly turn those around when they are in the public right of way. So.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Stopper?
Thank you for bringing up that, it's a little bit different in every town, but, if Murphy's is able to put together a plan for them, then there's a plan for downtown Copper also that they could possibly put forward that may facilitate part of this being easier, or it could be more of a quilt, as you say, practice. Also, Moke Hill. So I think the versatility being there, maybe the business owners in Moke Hill could come together with a plan, or they decide not to and do it piece by piece. But making this able for the county as a whole and understanding that gives us flexibility either way, because it's not going to work for some areas and it is going to work for others.
Well, you can expand upon that a little bit too, and like the site plan for Marvell Shopping Center, Terrace Shopping Center, all the merchants, so you know the layout and it's submitted to you, and this one's doing this and this and so forth, so it can be expanded.
I think that might streamline the process overall in certain areas and make it a little bit easier on you, especially having, let's say, a plaza sit down with you and work with you in its entirety, how it can apply, as opposed to each business possibly pushing on the next door neighbor. I mean, it might mitigate some of our issues moving forward.
In my experience, it has always been more efficient to have one event coordinator on larger projects meet with building, planning, public works, fire over one site plan, agree to the layout, and then prepare the front counter for everybody coming in for the individual permits and inspect off that master. It's always been beneficial to everyone. So I would encourage it moving forward, not just during this emergency, but for any special event following that template. And I think we're all on the same page as department heads on that.
Mr. Mills?
Yes, and I know that Town Square does have an event coordinator, and I can reach out to them and be sure that they're the ones that
Okay, and we
speak
can
for
coordinate
everybody
these
in that.
meetings as, around the schedules of the other department heads and make sure that we can get it done.
I'm thinking about IGA as well, about what they might do. Maybe I could reach out to Dennis and see what he wants.
Bring it on.
Thank you.
Will businesses be able to do this online, or do they have to come on? They can fill out the application online and send?
We're not there yet. If there is a need, we will adapt. And once again, I can't speak for the planning permit because we'll coordinate with that with Peter.
I guess you don't want 20 people coming in and waiting at the counter this afternoon.
It would be my hope that they wouldn't have to wait.
Madam Chair?
Calaveras County Planning Department shall make its application requirements and forms available.
So we're close to developing the final application package. We'll have it posted online hopefully by the end of the day today. There's been some questions about the process. It's sort of a potentially two-step process. If it's just using existing space, not going into the public right of way, they're not going to install any canopies or tents or anything like that. It's essentially planning only review, look at the site plan, looks good, and it could be signed, if not just right then over the counter, at least within that same day. If it includes a structure or it's going to include use of the public right of way, then it would have to be routed to Public Works or the building department or both, and then that process would need to work through. But we would be prepared to issue those almost immediately. One thing that there was concern about, each individual applicant having to prepare a site plan. If they're going to be serving alcohol, they have to do that anyway because of a temporary alcoholic beverage control license that they need to get. And they need to submit a site plan showing where they're going to be serving. So it would be something that they would need anyway. And I think it's helpful just so we know exactly what they're proposing to do. and we don't get into, issues later on with, neighbor complaints, you're encroaching on my space or whatever. I like the idea of a joint or package plan of, a Main Street in town or a shopping center that comes in and has a program for the entirety of the shopping center rather than individual, and we can work with that as well. So we intend to try to make this as expeditious as possible. We will be posting the application form online as soon as it's ready. And I'm here to answer any other questions you might have from the planning perspective.
No, we have no questions. Mr. Alt, did you have any comments you want to make before I ask for public comment?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. As you can hear from all of our department heads explaining their commitment and the level of effort that we will put to these permits, there's going to be a significant amount of time from their various staffs over the next week or two. So the first piece is to make understanding with our public that this is a priority for the board, and we're going to work very hard on getting these out the door quickly. So that means for the next few days, some other very important work will, to a certain extent, take a backseat to us completing these permits. But of my largest concern, because the budget is so important to what we do, I would ask the board for some leeway in this particular issue, that we do support all of this level of effort out of the CARES Act funding. We do have $4.6 million. This would be a small share of it. It'd be very easy for us to track the time. We've done that. We could do it very similarly to the way that we do it in the cannabis program. But in our read, Krista and I's read of the CARES Act funding, this is particularly what it can support. And we'd like to be able to track the time as a first priority to help what would otherwise be general fund expenditures towards this very important effort.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Mills.
Thank you. That was the reason, Mr. Alt, that I had brought up about the budget unit and having the auditor set up an account number, so that we started tracking everything right now, and probably trying to do for a little bit of forensic work, which won't be much, and be sure we've got it all accounted for. I don't want to have to try to revise this or relive it later. Let's get it all in the account now, and then we can discuss it.
Good point.
And that's why I brought it up specifically to your comment, Supervisor Mills. If we don't have the authority of where this is going to be paid for right now, we'll just do what we normally do with general fund work and do the work and won't track it. But if we know the supervisor support the reimbursement through CARES Act, then we'll track it very succinctly. And we don't have so much time and effort that hasn't been recorded at this point that we won't be able to capture that back and effectively reimburse the general fund for our work to this point.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to open up to public comment. If there's any public comment on this resolution, please call in.
Madam Chair, there is a public comment caller with a number ending in 5051.
Okay. Could you manage that one, please?
Can I speak now?
Yes, you may. Madam Chair, there is a public comment caller.
Okay, let me turn that down while I speak here. First off, thank you for allowing public comment. Your user or meeting ID earlier today was wrong. That was listed on the screen, and I wasn't able to get through it. I do support the board when it comes to this item. I think it will do a lot to help the county and Albert All's decision to track this. I believe we decided to track this. I'm not sure. I was in between different work items today. Tracking this is very important, as you one day may receive the money or may not, depending on your actions as a county, as we know. But yes, fine work, folks. Doing a great job. I'd like you all to take care. Have a wonderful week. And remember, I'm always there to support you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I hear no other public comment and bring the item back to the board. Mr. Garamendi?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the resolution as amended.
Okay, I have a second.
Go ahead, Gary.
I'll second it.
I'll second.
I think we all second it.
Yeah.
We all second it.
We all second
A second by Supervisor Toffanelli. All in favor, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. I'd like to return just a moment to public comment. There was someone or someones who wanted to call in during public comment and didn't have the opportunity. I'm going to leave the line open for a moment. Okay, I apologize to the person who had called in and didn't get through. If you would like to send an email to the clerk to the board, she will get it out to us. All right, I'd like to move to supervisor announcement. Does any supervisor have something that they would like to say? Mr. Mills?
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I had a chance to spend a little time at Natural Bridges over the weekend, and along Parrots Ferry. That is really if these are the people that are getting back to nature and have any desire to respect Calaveras County, and you're going to any of the areas of our county to enjoy nature, please pack it out. Please take the time to respect where you're coming from or where you are, and allow other people to enjoy the natural beauty of our county, just like you would like to do. And I'm just imploring people, have a little respect.
Mr. Toffanelli?
Yes, I have a couple things. One, last night, our LAFCO, and this has to do with Dennis, Supervisor Mills, we had a LAFCO meeting, and on our agenda was, item number 8 was a discussion regarding Copper Cove, Rocky Road Community Service Districts, and I know Supervisor Mills at our last meeting during supervisor comments brought it up that the board of this community service district has all resigned. And then Jack had brought up that he had an issue with a couple of these in his district. So I'm asking if we can, sometime in August, bring this for a discussion to our board, get it on the agenda, see if CAO Alt can get it in sometime just for an open discussion, because we did have this discussion on LAFCO's position, because any dissolving of this or any changing of this, it's going to have to go through a LAFCO process. So we need to, at least at the board, and he was asking last night, that we have this discussion at the board level before they went forward. So if we're all in agreement with that, we direct Al to put it at a future, sometime in August, hopefully, on the agenda for us.
Supervisor, I fully support that because there's a lot of unanswered questions that I think need some clarity and some direction from the board, not only for this particular district, but for other districts that have potential to be in the same position here very quickly.
Okay. And then the other item, and I don't know if you guys have read or seen the letter from the Calaveras County Fire Joint Powers Authority and their request to get on our agenda to ask for a loan of $2 million to be able to bid on the RFP for the ambulance service contract coming up. I'm in favor myself of at least having a discussion, having them give us a presentation and having this discussion at the board level as rather. We would be interested in doing that and hear their plan for it. Their plan in the letter explains that it would be a 2-year payback period, that they would need to spend the money, but they were talking about a lot of different things, and I, for one, would like to at least hear what they have to say, at least put it on our agenda as soon as we can and have them come in and give us.
What about when they're ready to make a presentation?
I think they'd probably be as ready as soon as we get it on the agenda. So I would like to ask, would the board would like to do that?
Yes, I'm fine. I mean, we're asking a lot, and there's a lot going on, so in the list of priorities, where is it that we want this? And then Copper, Rocky Road, or Rocky
Well,
Road.
the RFP is going to be up. It's not going to be out forever, so as soon as we can possibly get it on, I would like to at least get it on. I think they would be prepared as soon as they know it's going to be, what date it's going to be on the agenda. They would be prepared for us.
I'm in favor of it, and we need to bring up the RFP also, because I think there's some new language in there that may be binding on it. So we'll get into that discussion when we get into it.
I would be fully in favor of it as well. I've been speaking with the chiefs and the executive officers of the districts, including Murphy's, about it, and they feel, especially along the Highway 4 corridor, that it's definitely within the realm of possibility. The challenge, of course, is always going to be up there in the more remote areas of District 2, and how do we support Central Fire in being able to fulfill the goals if that's what we're going to do. So crunching the numbers, they need to come to us if they're going to say, we'll repay it in 2 years. They need to be able to crunch the numbers with us and show us how it's going to work.
And I think they're prepared to do that.
Yeah, I know they are.
As soon as we can get it on, they'll be prepared.
Okay, Mr. Alt, you got that, right?
I do, Madam Chair. I'm taking notes. It looks like the next possible meeting would be the August 11th meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Supervisor Toffanelli, did you say Calco is coordinating that, or the executives? I should reach out to the executives of the JPA.
Yes, you can reach out to Rich Dickinson.
Will do.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Stopper?
Thank you for bringing that up, Supervisor Toffanelli. Also, last meeting, we had a discussion during supervisors' announcements about some of the solid waste activity. He asked me to bring some stuff to the solid waste task force, which met this last week. I think we've solved part of the hauling issue. Cal Waste came to the table. They brought some solution to it. I don't think it solves the entire issue, but we're at a point where certain businesses are able to proceed and conduct business as they were before. As to the issue that Ms. Callaway had brought up about dropping off water heaters and other things from contractors at the transfer station, GAMI came up with a solution, but there are certain things in our past code that we passed that's binding our hands. So I also would like to bring up that we have a lot going on. Yes, the staff has a lot on their hands. We have not done study sessions this year ever since COVID-19. And we need to start, there's some things, the world's still rotating and we need to work on some things, and we all talked about needing to bring forward the ordinance when it comes to solid waste that needs to be worked on. It's been drafted in 2016 right after Cal Waste had put it forward. It didn't finish circulation, and I think we have an outline there that we can work off of moving forward that can address a lot of these issues that we're dealing with. So I would also like to propose that we also move forward on those issues also with the study session, something that's been on our priority list for some time, and not necessarily doesn't need to be prior to the issue that you just brought up, Mr. Toffanelli, but definitely something that should be high on our list.
Okay. All of you in agreement on that?
And thank you, Ben, for tackling on the solid waste task force end of it. Thank you.
I think we've talked about issues already with the board here, so I can bring it up. There's been some heated discussions about the Cal Waste contract. I think Cal Waste wants to build a relationship with us. We're still in that contract for at least 5 years. And I think we'd be good to have that discussion with them also. It would be better to work as partners as opposed to adversaries.
Okay, and there,
Thank you.
I do have something to say, but we have a public comment. I want to get back to the person on the line, Ms. Severud.
So caller with the phone number ending in 5051, please give your comments beginning now.
Okay, I'm going to begin with the comments now. I understand that you're no longer taking written public comment, so what I will be doing is reading my email to you as soon as I find it. To the board chair, please don't rush to end public comment so soon. I work as fast as possible to get onto the line. Let me find this. Okay. Calaveras County Board of Supervisors. While you do not have a public health update listed on the agenda for July 21st, 2020, meeting of the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors, I would like the supervisors to ask some questions of the county public health staff. Many of the community that have symptoms and have been exposed to possible infection of COVID-19 have not sought testing because they have apprehensions caused by reasonable fear of the unknown. Perhaps staff could answer the following questions so that people may better understand the procedure for testing and treatment. 1, what does the testing process look like? An example, setting the appointment, being swabbed, time frame for results, and what are the options for where to be tested. Please walk the community through the process in detail. 2, if a person has a positive result, what are the next steps that will be taken by the local health authority? Will the person be receiving a phone call, letter, or a visit from the local health authority? Will the infected individual's personal physician be contacted? And will treatment be handled by the person's personal physician or a local health entity, hospital, or question? C, after the initial contact tracing procedure, will the person be monitored by the local health authority, and what will the monitoring look like? Phone calls from the local health authority, visits from the local health authority, or self-monitoring and check-ins? 3, if a person tests positive for COVID-19, what support can the person expect from the local, state, federal governments, i.e. unemployment insurance payment, help with grocery shopping while in isolation, etc.? Will the individual be put in contact with local community organizations that may be able to help with needed services?
You have 30 seconds.
The pandemic the pandemic has impacted everyone, and the asking and answering of last week's questions helped many in the community understand where the county government is at this point. I hope that the applicable county departments understand that communication with the public is an absolute in these days of fear and hardship, with respect, caring, and kindness. Thank you for letting me read this. I wish you all a wonderful day, a wonderful week. I want you to take care and be safe.
Carl Stoughton, thank you
Bye-bye.
very much for your comments. I'd like to go back to board. It was 11 years ago today that the bypass opened. So that would be nice in the sense of history. All of you take a drive over that bypass on your way to Frogtown to get tested. But more...
Then you'd have to turn and go by Tryon's house to get back.
That's all right. Yeah, I wanted you to do a bypass by Tryon's house. But more important than that, on behalf of the board, we were really saddened to get the notice about the gentleman dying from COVID, and to the family and his friends and to the community, the board sends our deepest condolences. And thank you for sharing him with us. And hopefully we don't have any more, but to the family and friends, we wish you through this moment and the impact it has on the rest of us. Thank you. There's no other comments this meeting. No, did I forget something?
No, you're fine. There's no other comments.
I'm fine. This meeting is adjourned.